Hi guys, Liz Truss was back giving interviews on Thursday and each one was worse than the previous. But it was clear as day for those who are struggling to come to terms with reality that she's out of her depth. Here she was challenged on the issue of local consent for fracking. Now, it must be remembered that there's little support for this type of energy production in the UK, but as Truss has been advised by right-wing think tanks who get their funding from the fossil fuel industry, she will push it as a solution to the energy crisis. However, while in the US fracking can take place without much local opposition, this is due to the fact that it happens in remote areas and in constituencies where Republicans have permanent majorities. The Tories don't enjoy such benefits, and Liz Truss is perhaps beginning to understand that. Here she was on BBC Lancashire, where she was challenged on consent for fracking.
Let's talk about local consent right now. What does that look like? Scott Benton, the Conservative MP for Blackpool South, in a tweet says he believes that people in Blackpool South do not support fracking. This is the Tory MP for Fylde, Mark Menzies, in the House of Commons.
If the Prime Minister is to remain a woman of her word, a woman that we can believe in, which I believe she is, can the Secretary of State outline how that local consent will be given and demonstrated in my constituency of Fylde?
What does local consent look like, Prime Minister?
Well, the Energy Secretary will be laying out in more detail exactly what that looks like.
Okay, but the Energy Secretary, Jacob Rees-Mogg, said in the House of Commons during that exchange with another Tory that local communities will be supported. He didn't say anything about consent, really, or he gave the impression that, well, they won't be consented, but they will be compensated. Now, as I said before, there are right-wing think tanks who want Liz Truss to force this through. They don't believe in consent. They believe in protecting certain interests that are funding them. Now, Liz Truss doesn't seem to understand this or doesn't care. But this is not about consent. This is about forcing something through. And if there are problems, well, we'll just compensate the local community after we've made a profit, of course.
But it does mean making sure there is local support for going ahead. And I can assure
it sounds
you,
like you don't know.
And I can assure Mark Menzies. Well, there are various detailed issues to be worked through, but I can assure Mark Menzies that I will make sure there is local consent if we are to go ahead in any particular area with fracking.
But your local MPs don't want it, all Conservative. In the past, the County Council have said they didn't want it, yet your government overturned it. The science hasn't changed. Why can't you tell us this morning there won't be a return to fracking in Lancashire?
Well, I don't accept the premise of your question.
This is Liz Truss's response when she doesn't know what to say. I don't accept the premise of your question. Now, it's obviously clear that there isn't consent in Lancashire for this. MPs on her side are against it. Councils are against it. The local community is against it. Then what else do you need to know? There isn't consent for fracking. But as I said, the government are not interested in consent. They're interested in forcing this through. And then if necessary, the water has been contaminated. Well, maybe we'll fine the company a bit, or maybe, they can donate to a charity or something like that. Or they can plant a few trees. This is the Tory solution. Ignore the local community, force this through. But the problem is that if your Tory MPs are against it, what they're going to do is, because they're probably not concerned about the environment, they're not concerned about the local community, they're concerned about their seat. And they know that, well, if the local community is against this, I risk losing my seat at the next election. That's why they're against it. Not for some, ideological reason. It's about, whoops, this is going to be bad for me.
Why?
It's certainly the case at present. Because what I've said is if there is local consent...
But there isn't local consent. Look, is she really this stupid? Is she this brain dead that she can't answer the question? Look, why are you going ahead with this if there isn't consent? The answer should be, well, we're not going to go ahead with it if there isn't consent. But she can't say that because she has to force this through. Because the people in number 10 are telling her, we need to go with this. This is the solution to the energy crisis. And also probably, I don't know, but probably, when you leave office, one of these companies would probably put you on the board. Or they give you a huge donation or something like that. This is how it works. We've seen it before.
We will go ahead. We need to explore where there is local consent and where there isn't. And we're still doing that work.
Your
I don't think
Chancellor,
we should rule out the whole
Okay.
of Lancashire.
you talked about how it's a success in other countries, but in America they do it in the middle of nowhere. Do you actually know where Preston New Road is, where they have been fracking?
Well, I don't think I've been to that site in the past.
Shouldn't you?
Well,
My God, that silence was eternal. Shouldn't you, you're pushing a policy. Like, if you truly believed in it, you would go to see how it works, you would understand how it works, and you would present it to the public as a solution. But obviously she hasn't, because she's relying on these think tanks who are saying, yeah, don't believe in us. Believe us, it's going to be a wonderful solution, it's going to resolve all the problems. Or, as I said, don't worry about the public, just push it through, and when you leave office, there'll be a mess for the next administration. But, you'll be earning, 6 figures or 7 figures working for one of these companies. As a lobbyist, of course.
as I've said, we will only go ahead with projects where there is local consent. I'm very, very clear about that. Now, we will make sure that local consent is in place.
That's not, as I said, what Jacob Rees-Mogg said. Jacob Rees-Mogg said that there will be support for any community where there is fracking. I hope this does not happen. This is damaging to the environment. It contaminates water supplies. There are issues of earthquakes. And it doesn't resolve the crisis, because the gas will be sold on the international market, so it won't bring it down. The solution is to unshackle renewables and invest in renewables. In that case, you're relying on the sun, you're relying on the wind, which is renewable. These fracking plants are problematic, and you're relying on quantities of gas that will eventually run out. It doesn't make economic sense, it doesn't make any real sense. But the people who are pushing it obviously have an interest in it. And Liz Truss is either stupid or Liz Truss is weak in response to this. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.